The world once again embraces a new beauty trend. A high nose and sharp chin are no longer the most important criteria. Now, it's all about the eyes. The belief that a beautiful girl must have large eyes has taken hold, and major beauty contests now use this as the standard for selecting winners. Because of this societal demand, many methods to enhance the eyes have emerged, making them appear larger. However, as the trend of beautifying eyes gained popularity, it eventually became distorted and misguided. This story takes place at a famous cosmetic surgery hospital in the city. At this time, the hospital staff had to take late lunch breaks, often working overtime as the number of customers grew steadily. The hospital had just released a new invention for eye beauty, a product that eliminates the need for painful surgery. The nurses whispered to each other that the product was quite expensive, only recently released on the market, and designed exclusively for the wealthy. Those who used it would have extraordinarily beautiful eyes. Mary, a nurse who had worked at the hospital for over 5 years, always felt sad about her small eyes. It made her feel insecure, but she didn't have enough money to afford surgery to make them bigger. And now, with this expensive product, her dream seemed even further out of reach. As she pondered, Dr. Khan, Mary's superior, called for her. In the hospital, Dr. Khan was the only one who never judged her for her small eyes, which is why Mary held him in high regard. Dr. Khan asked Mary if she remembered the time when he drove her home and they stopped for a bowl of noodles. Mary was thrilled, thinking that Dr. Khan wanted to take her out for another meal, realizing that in this day and age, Dr. Khan was the only one who didn't care about her appearance. But soon, her hopes were dashed. Dr. Khan took a box from his bag and told Mary to deliver it to a customer. The customer was participating in a beauty contest at the stadium right next to the noodle shop where they had eaten. Feeling a bit disappointed, Mary thought that Dr. Khan must be busy working overtime, which is why he asked her to do it. So, Mary quickly took the box of medicine to the stadium to deliver it to the customer. As she passed by the dressing room, Mary overheard some girls talking, saying that Kathy truly deserved the crown. Even they had to admit that Kathy's eyes were incredibly beautiful. Since the security guard said that the contestants were in the dressing room, Mary walked straight in. However, because the room was filled with beautiful girls with large eyes, Mary quickly entered the restroom and put on her glasses. She didn't want them to gossip about her eyes behind her back. The more she looked in the mirror, the more insecure Mary felt. Among all these beautiful women, she felt even more pitiful. She wondered, if only she had enough money to try the medicine in that box, how wonderful that would be. Just as Mary was about to leave the restroom, a beautiful girl walked past. This girl had large eyes and a seductive appearance. In her carelessness, Mary accidentally bumped into this girl. Her glasses fell to the floor, and as Mary looked up to apologize, she suddenly realized that it was Kathy, her classmate. The beautiful girl immediately spoke when she recognized Mary, commenting that after 4 years, Mary's small, ugly eyes were still a distinct feature that no one could mistake. At that moment, Kathy's manager rushed over, worried, asking if she was okay. He then turned to Mary, cursing her as a poor, eyeless person who dared to hurt Kathy, the winner of the country's biggest beauty contest. He cruelly told Mary to wear the dark glasses for the rest of her life and never go outside again. He even threatened to sue her, claiming that if anything happened to Kathy's eyes, she wouldn't be let off the hook. Kathy told her assistant to hurry up, fearing they would miss the press interview. She mocked Mary, saying she was both ugly and poor, so how could she afford to compensate Kathy? Feeling deeply humiliated, Mary cried a lot. She looked at the dark glasses and wondered, would she have to wear them for the rest of her life? At that moment, Curiosity overwhelmed her. She decided not to give the item to Kathy anymore. She stood in front of the mirror in the restroom and stared at her eyes. Even she could see how ugly they were. Why had she been born with such small eyes? Then she hesitated, wondering whether she should try the product inside the box. Mary was very curious. What could be inside the box that could make someone's eyes look incredibly beautiful? Taking a chance, Mary opened it to take a look. Inside the box were just 2 lenses, nothing special at all. Mary closed the box, thinking, what's so special about these that they're so expensive? And how could they compare to surgery to enlarge the eyes? And yet people are spreading rumors about them. But curiosity pushed her further. After all, Dr. Khan had succeeded with this research and made the world astonished. So Mary bravely put the lenses on to try them. She thought if nothing happened, she could just take them off and return them. She was curious to experience what the rich use. As soon as she put one lens into her eye, Mary noticed a distinct difference. Her eyes seemed to grow larger, which thrilled her. But soon after, she felt as if her pupil might burst or even jump right out of her eye. Worse still, her eye seemed to swell, causing her immense pain. Mary screamed in terror. But just after that, when she looked closely, she didn't see anything unusual. She only saw her eyes in the mirror, now bigger and incredibly beautiful. There was one thing Mary never expected. Once the lens was in, it couldn't be removed. Back at the hospital, Mary was extremely confident because of her beautiful new eyes. She went to Dr. Cannon's office, planning to confess everything and ask how to solve the problem. Just as she was about to knock on the door, Mary heard voices from inside. It sounded like Kathy was there. Had she come about the 2 lenses from yesterday? Mary felt nervous. She had already used the 2 lenses, and their value was not small. How would she handle this? Had she stolen them? Inside, Kathy was questioning Dr. Khan because she had waited all day yesterday, but hadn't received the items. Dr. Khan promised. To maintain her large eyes, Kathy would need to insert new lenses every 3 months. Dr. Khan explained that perhaps Mary was busy with something and forgot to deliver the items to her. Furthermore, when facing the beautiful Kathy, Dr. Khan expressed his disapproval of Mary, bluntly saying that Mary was an employee who not only had ugly eyes, but also did poor work, unable to complete a simple task. After this, Kathy appeared worried. She feared that the product might be limited, and if it wore off, she would return to being ugly again, which would be a dreadful situation. Dr. Khan reassured Kathy, saying that the product was purchased from Organization X with a large stock, so there was no need to worry. Outside, hearing such hurtful words, Mary felt deeply hurt. She never expected someone she cared about to treat her this way. Suddenly, from inside the room, Mary heard Dr. Khan say that he would personally go to fetch 2 new lenses for Kathy right away, as the hospital had just received a large supply. Dr. Khan mentioned that the weakness of the lenses was that they needed to be stored in a cold storage for a long time. Hearing the noise, Mary was too afraid to face them. As Dr. Khan opened the door to step out, Mary had already left. Dr. Khan told Kathy that he would take her to visit the storage and production area of the product and asked her to keep it a secret. In the hallway, Mary ran and cried, heading toward the hospital's product research room. At this point, she knew she couldn't turn back anymore. Mary thought about the worst-case scenario. Mary entered the cold storage room. She decided to use all the products on her own eyes to prolong her beauty and ensure no one could be more beautiful than her. Mary had made up her mind. She thought that once her eyes were bigger than Kathy's, she would be the only one with the title of beauty, and she would earn money from it. Her life would change. Without hesitation, Mary began opening each compartment of the lenses. Outside, Dr. Ken and Kathy had arrived at the cold storage room, and Dr. Ken was surprised to see that the cold storage was open. Dr. Khan felt something was off. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a large eye flew out of the cold storage, startling both Dr. Khan and Kathy. Dr. Khan, terrified, couldn't believe his eyes. The terrifying scenario he had once imagined was now happening right before him. It was Mary. She seemed to have gone mad. Her eyes were long and twisted, looking extremely terrifying. Mary was ecstatic, thinking that now she had the largest and longest eyes in the world. That day, the news shocked the city. Young Dr. Khan and the model with the most beautiful eyes were found frozen to death in the hospital's cold storage. The prime suspect, Nurse Mary, had disappeared from the scene. The security camera footage revealed that 2 tentacles had flown out from Mary's eyes, tightening around the victims, causing their deaths.
Dan and Chinko are final year students who share the same dormitory room at the school. Tan's hobby is studying insects and zoology under the guidance of a strange website with an X symbol. So he had a lot of monstrous ideas, rather crazy ideas. After removing the spider from the glass cage, Tan used a small scalpel to cut the animal's body. He laughed gleefully with a rather savage face. This happens often, making Chinko feel very uncomfortable. After dissecting the spider, Tan threw it in the trash. Chinko hated this, so he repeatedly reminded Tan not to throw it around like that. However, Tan still did what he liked, and no sense of keeping his dorm room clean has ever came to him. Instead of behaving with disgust towards the insects like Chinko, Tan would feel excited about their mucus, even complimenting that the insects were cute. Tan loved insects because they could fly, they had sharp mouths to eat with, and they could mate at will. But humans could not do those things, especially fly. He wanted to turn his room into a farm where insects and larvae would live. Because of that, he raised the eggs of many species. It seemed that Tan was quite successful with his research. As for Chinko, he thought it was disgusting and perverted, so he never wanted to see them. He asked Tan to raise and study them in a more secluded place. However, in the eyes of the insect enthusiast, they were never repulsive or scary. Hey Tan, if you like insects so much, why not just become like them, huh? Tan lifted the egg in his hand and began to smile monstrously, thinking that the idea of turning into an insect wasn't so bad at all. A few days later, a scary thing happened. Tan made a curtain inside. He kept a lot of live insects behind this, and he was also there with his children. He was always smiling to himself inside and enjoying what was going on. Chinko felt that he was staying with an eccentric person like Tan, who was almost always alone in the room and did not interact with anyone. Suddenly, Tan poked his head out from behind the curtain, saying, "Hi, I'm a cockroach," and he stepped out of the curtain with the appearance of an insect. He dressed up as a cockroach with all the accessories attached. Chinko did not expect Tan actually to disguise himself as an insect. He really thought that Tan was a bit of a freak, maybe even a psychopath. Chinko didn't pay attention to Tan's fun. He took the glasses off from his eyes and even criticized that Tan really didn't suit it. After that, Chinko casually took the glasses and looked through them for a while out of curiosity. He didn't expect the glasses to have a lifelike vision. Chinko shouted excitedly, but he was really looking through the eyes of a cockroach. Tan angrily held at him immediately because his research was incomplete and very dangerous for others. Chinko didn't know what was wrong, but he still mocked Tan like a child. He said Tan looked like an ugly bug. Seeing Tan's hard wings, Chinko didn't forget to laugh at how ridiculous it looked, so Tan studied these three silly things all day. He laughed at Tan's fondness. Chinko even challenged Tan about why he didn't fly, because cockroaches had to be able to fly, which made Tan extremely angry. It was just a joke at first, but Tan tried to make things real with his ideas. For the next few days, Tan was completely silent and focused solely on his research with insects. Since there was no reaction from Tan for quite a while, Chinko got curious and decided to see what was happening. He had to widen his eyes in surprise because he didn't expect that Tan was actually raising a very large cocoon. Chinko wondered if Tan was in the cocoon and intended to transform into a butterfly that can fly. It was a very large cocoon about the size of an adult. Chinko began to feel apprehensive, thinking to himself that maybe Tan wasn't inside and he was somewhere out there. Tan had been absent for over a week, but Chinko had no idea where he had gone. The dorm was rarely quiet, and Chinko wanted to sneak a peek at what Tan did to his insects. After a while, the cocoon suddenly heaved and squeaked a few times as if it was about to open. A great idea suddenly popped into Chinko's mind. Knowing Tan loved to learn from the bug's way of life, Chinko assumed that Tan might have learned to live in a cocoon. He thought of a way to destroy Tan's cocoon. And in order for them to hatch as soon as possible, the air must be warmed in the same way a hen incubates her eggs. Chinko decided to use hot air fans, and about 30 minutes later, there was still no movement. He did not expect the endurance of such a large cocoon. Finally, under the heat, the cocoon slowly began to crack. It was terrible when hundreds of cockroaches crawled out of the cocoon and swarmed, looking disgusting. Chinko's nightmare turned into reality as he saw the cockroaches started flying everywhere in his room. They went into the furniture, into him, everywhere. Then one of them landed directly on his forehead, scaring him. Chinko looked at a cockroach with a human-shaped face. Then the cockroach whispered, "My friend, don't laugh, because I can now fly." The story happened in a cosmetic hospital located on the outskirts of the city named X. At the moment, the doctor just frowned and narrowed his eyes, looking extremely difficult to say when examining the situation of a strange patient. His name was Rin, and he had a weird syndrome never seen before. According to his presentation yesterday, he still possessed thick, shiny black hair, but after taking off his hat, Rin began telling the story about the problem he was facing. Last night, he and a new girl he met at a bar went to a hotel. Here the two made love together. However, this woman named Jerem felt pain and said this was her first time. Rin also felt guilty and immediately apologized to his girlfriend. After that, the two continued to have fun. Jerem was sexy while saying, "I have this great trick." Rin got excited, saying he couldn't wait to try. After all the fun, the girl scolded Rin in love and lay in his arms. The two stayed together all night until 9 a.m. the next day. Both were still curled up in the blanket and slept soundly. Suddenly the alarm clock rang loudly. Jerem pulled her head out of the blanket, urging Rin to turn off the alarm quickly. Then, she noticed something strange about the person lying next to her. Jerem was so terrified that she woke Rin up, and he was startled when he awoke. "Where's your hair?" Jerem asked him, panicking. Rin was now extremely bewildered as he touched his forehead. He didn't understand what happened either. After that, Rin rushed to see the doctor and asked the doctor to look at his hair to check what was wrong. More than half of his hair was gone, making him uncomfortable in this ghostly appearance. Rin also confirmed that he did not suffer from hair loss before. The doctor was also surprised to hear this. "Didn't you lose any hair?" That was completely true, because otherwise Rin would not have panicked like that, Rin explained to the doctor. The doctor immediately reassured him, saying that no matter how strange the situation was, there was no problem with the hospital's hair transplant technology, so Rin didn't have to worry. The next day at a fancy restaurant, when Rin and Jerem met, Jerem touched his hair, constantly praising him because it was darker and shinier now than ever before. Of course, Rin was very happy and cherished his hair, so he always reminded Jerem to be careful when touching it because new hair growth was still not good. Jerem looked at their hair and thought that the hair transplant was also worth the money. However, 3 days later, an angry Rin went to see the doctor. Seeing Rin's appearance this time, the doctor couldn't believe it right before his eyes. Without saying anything, Rin immediately held at the doctor about what the hell was going on and why his hair, just transplanted, disappeared. Rin began to doubt the doctor's ability, possibly because of his poor technical skills that caused this to happen. The doctor was surprised that the hair on Rin's head disappeared without understanding the reason. Rin clutched the doctor's shirt tightly, blaming the doctor for this, that his girlfriend ignored him for days. Rin began to lose faith, but he had no choice but to rely on the doctor. Therefore, he also begged the doctor how to get his healthy hair back quickly. Rin was once again given a hair transplant by a surgeon. A few hours later, Rin dreamily saw the doctor waving. He slowly opened his eyes. As he woke up, he heard the doctor asking him something. He asked the doctor if the surgery went smooth. The surgery was no problem, but to be safe, the doctors temporarily protected the hair with a bandage. After a few days, when the hair roots were stable, they took it off for Rin. For a few days, Rin was forced to wear a bandage to protect his hair. But to reassure him, the doctors prepared an extra wig cap for him, so there was no need to worry. Only then did Rin begin to feel more secure. He was discharged the next day. Along with the doctor's advice, Rin would soon return to the hospital for a re-examination. Before he left, the doctor also advised absolutely not to remove the gauze. Otherwise, their hair follicles would be damaged and their hair transplant might not be performed later. Rin was very excited and happy. He thanked the doctor and he left. When she saw Rin had left, the nurse worriedly told the doctor something. She asked the doctor what they would do next. The doctor began to worry with a serious expression, saying that this case must be discussed with the head of the department quickly. That night, the same day Rin was discharged from the hospital, he took his girlfriend out for an excursion. She didn't understand what was happening with her boyfriend and why his hair suddenly disappeared. It was like a magic trick, and she wondered whether this transplant was successful or not. Rin wasn't sure either, but to comfort himself, he also told Jerem that there would be no problem this time, and the doctor confirmed that. Both could only hope this didn't happen again. Because this made his girlfriend upset, Rin was forced to apologize to her first for worrying her for the past few days. After stopping the car on the side of the road, the two rushed into each other's embrace. While kissing, Jerem instinctively pulled out Rin's hair again. From inside the car came a panicked scream. Jerem grabbed Rin's wig and held, accusing him of lying to her. He quickly pushed Jerem down, calmed her down, and explained to her. Because he missed her so much, he quickly put on a wig to meet her before the hair inside was stable. He promised that he would show her later. After that, he raped her while talking. In another development, the doctor went to the dean's room to discuss Rin's case. That was a video taken during surgery the other day. The two doctors watched intently as they began to discuss the new issue. At this time, the surgeon was attentively transplanting hair into Rin's scalp. Each strand was carefully transplanted. However, the nurse quickly discovered and reported to the doctor that Rin's hair follicles were weird. They seemed to be alive, and the transplanted hair was directly sucked in by the hair follicles. The doctor shook his hand while doing it because he also felt the strange thing. He carefully inserted the hair into the hair follicle. The paws were like mouths waiting for food to be inserted by a doctor. However, the doctor felt this was wonderful. The thing made him excited. They began to notice things happening over Rin's head. The doctor stopped the machine to continue observing, and at this point the hair had been transplanted all over the scalp. After that, the hair pores began to expand. The hair seemed to be sucked in, as there was a sound like the cry of some strange creature. The doctors were also amazed, and their eyes were wide as they watched. At the moment, the nurse reluctantly claimed that Rin's head seemed to be getting bigger than before. The doctor brought his eyes closer to look, as he couldn't believe it. He discovered the cause of Rin's hair loss symptoms. After that, the doctors had continued to transplant the hair in their operating room. That became much more stressful. Although it was a strange phenomenon, it was not insurmountable. So the doctor also considers this a great discovery in the scientific world. Well, back to the story at Rin's place. Jerem couldn't stop screaming at this point due to extreme panic. She saw something terrible on Rin's head. His hair follicles began to open like fangs. He even cried because there was no food. The drool from the hair follicles spilled all over Rin's face. He went crazy and could no longer control himself. Only listening to the voice in his head that wanted to pull Jerem's hair to feed his head made her cry in despair. The hole in Rin's head could speak, lamenting that they were hungry all over, wanting to eat immediately. Rin suddenly became the one thing ordered. Rin grabbed the tip of Jerem's hair, letting out a savage laugh while Jerem shivered and cried for help. Jerem cried out in vain. Her screams were so loud she didn't know who to call. Hair, hair, hair so delicious. I want to eat more.